Does AI have a specific voice, and is it possible that people actually prefer AI's voice to the voice of human writers? That's the kind of provocative question that came up for me in reading this new piece out a couple days ago from the New York Times. And the title of the piece is, Why Does AI Write Like That? And I think we all kind of know what that means here on a particular level. AI writing has a pattern to it, a feel to it, that you might not be able to identify based on the specifics of grammar and style, but that you can often kind of notice as you're reading things. You may have noticed that it's everywhere at this point. It's on restaurant menus, it's on blogs, it's basically on anything you find on social media at this point. This style of writing, as the author here talks about, this is Sam Kriss, is becoming kind of ubiquitous in our society. Emails are written this way. Any kind of personal communication, you have to suspect, oh, is this written by AI? And the author goes into kind of the conventions that drive this. I honestly think a lot of this comes out of a list that Wikipedia had published previously. I had made a video about that before and talked about that a bit, talking about ways to spot AI writing beyond just using tools that directly try to identify it. Now, that's not credited specifically in here, but to me, it's pretty clear that this author read through that. And if you want more of the technical breakdown of what does AI writing look like and why, that's a great thing to look at it. And a lot of it is echoed in here. Conventions like, it's not X, it's Y. It's not just a great video about AI writing, it's an intuitive look at what writer styles are actually about, whatever that kind of form. The rule of threes. So to say, it's incredible, fantastic, and very insightful when talking about this particular video that I'm making right now, which indeed it is, that kind of thing. There's a lot of conventions, again, that are going to show up in AI writing, and there are ways that kind of we can spot this. We can feel like we're reading something that might have been written by a machine, even if we can't necessarily detect that all the time with something like Originality AI or another kind of automated detection system. So I think these are really interesting things to highlight. The idea that an AI has its own writerly voice, just like people, and that now more and more and more of the world's writing is being written in this voice. And the kind of interesting question there is, well, what does that mean for people? What does that mean for writers? And how has that changed over time? I think one of the funniest parts of this piece talks about the randomness of early AI writing. I experienced this myself. My company does work with archives, and we've used AI to process large archives and kind of understand what's in photos. And we'll do finding aids, like the kind of thing that archivists might use to look through a collection and know what's in each photo. We'll use AI to help with that process. Now, I remember handing a photo of something random, a celebrity or something like that, to a very early AI model. And the way that it described it for that finding aid was a nun with a fish. And you have to ask yourself, why? What did it see? And the answer is that, oftentimes even the creators of AI systems have no idea. So, there's some funny things in here when the author asked an early version of AI to suggest titles for chapters in a novel. Things like Bonkers from My Sleeve and New and Ugly Injuries to the Brain. Another mountain that is very surprising. The Wetness of the Potatoes. So I think, these are delightful. But as this piece talks about, that language, that weirdness of AI has gotten standardized to the point where pretty much everything written by AI sounds very similar and shows up in political discourse. It shows up in all these surprising places. One argument here that I think is very interesting and that I've heard before is that sometimes this is based on the people who train AI. And in particular, a lot of people are from countries like Nigeria because it's relatively low cost of labor, but a very high English proficiency. English is taught really well and consistently in a lot of these countries. And so the theory is that words like delve, that might not be so common in American English or British English, but are very common in Nigerian English, are showing up in the writing style of AI writing because the system is being tweaked and trained and edited and corrected by a lot of people working in Nigeria who might be more familiar with those particular dialects. So I thought that was a very interesting concept. Another one is, as many of us have heard, AI loves the EM dash, which is a punctuation mark that's basically like a semicolon but better. And a lot of human writers love that too. So one of the theories there is that AI loves the EM dash because it's trained on a lot of writing, but a lot of writing that is well constructed, that's being labeled for it as this is professional, high quality writing, comes from published writers, books, that kind of thing. And writers love the EM dash because it's such a fantastic mark. So there might be a correlation there where the AI is learning, hey, quality writing has the EM dash, and it's performing the good old fashioned modus morans, which is the backwards logic of saying, hey, if good writing has a lot of EM dashes, then EM dashes must mean good writing. So we'll put a bunch of EM dashes in, and that'll make the writing really good. Of course, that's not the case at all. It reminds me of the classic Monty Python sketch where they're looking at a duck and a witch and deciding that if the witch weighs the same as the duck, then she must be made of wood, and using that as a means of conducting a trial. So it's that same logical fallacy of if there's a bunch of EM dashes in good writing, then putting a bunch of EM dashes in this writing must make it good, which is, of course, not the case. So there's a lot of very specific reasons for why AI writes in a particular way. Certainly a lot of conventions that we can follow where we might be able to kind of intuitively pick up on AI writing. But to me, the biggest question here is, should we care? Because what the author looks at here, and I think probably could cover in more detail, honestly, is that a lot of people don't really care. They don't care if the writing is by AI. And actually, I found that it goes further than that. A lot of people prefer AI writing to the humankind. So why is that? And I think the biggest thing here is that dividing writing into AI and not AI is not the best way to look at it. You really have to look at good and bad writing, and in particular, writing that serves its purpose well or that doesn't. And it's very possible for humans, very easy in fact, for a human to generate bad writing that meanders off in random directions, that fails to share the relevant details. And maybe for something like a piece of fiction, you want that human element of the story. You want something that maybe is a little bit unpolished and imperfect in some cases. Probably not badly written, but just written a little bit more creatively. But, if you're looking for an instruction manual for how to use your toaster, you probably don't want or care about that kind of human discourse. You want something really straightforward, really clear, to the point, bullet points, exactly the stuff that you need to know. And in that case, AI is probably better than the person at writing that kind of article or instruction manual or whatever it is. On the other hand, again, if you want that human perspective, like a review, for example, you probably want an actual person to have written that. And so even if it's not as well constructed, it's not as comprehensive as AI would do, you probably want that person's opinion. And certainly if they're a person that you're specifically interested in, somebody, a writer who you want to know what they think about it, not just what any human thinks about it, then certainly knowing that something was written by them could add value, even if it's not as well constructed and polished as AI. But again, for many, many use cases on the internet and beyond, that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for a quick, easy way to know what's going on in the world, a quick, easy way to understand how to use their toaster, or whatever these kind of more utilitarian use cases might be. Even in email, people don't want to wade through paragraph after paragraph. They just want writing that gets to the point. And AI is very good at doing that. So I think the pertinent thing here to look at is, do people care? Even with poetry, apparently they like AI poetry better than a lot of human poetry because it's beautiful, it's well constructed, it's easy to understand, and that works for people. So that's the big question here. Does AI have a voice? Yes, it seems like it does for all the reasons that we identified. It's very consistent across the AI writing that generates. Does it matter? I think that's a more complicated question. And to me, you have to ask, what is the writing being used for? And is AI the right fit for it? When you use AI for the wrong fit, it's a problem. But honestly, when you use human writing for the wrong fit, or when it's just lazily done, or not particularly well written, or it needed an editor and didn't have one, then it's often much worse than the AI alternative. So rather than dividing writing into, AI, not AI, maybe we should look at good versus bad, or at least writing that serves a purpose versus writing that does not.